An urban legend of a local assassin. Two teenage boys exploring the grounds of that legend in a Labor Day vacation that goes awry. This story will send a chill down your spine. Turn up your volume, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Labor Day Lake. It's Labor Day weekend. The Henderson sisters, Cassandra and Amari, decide to drive up to their family lake house for Labor Day weekend to get away from the city. Cassandra and Amari are both single mothers with one son. Cassandra, being the older sister, has a 17-year-old son named Corey. Amari, the younger sister, has a 15-year-old son, AJ, short for Anthony Jr., named after his father. Cassandra and Amari have a little brother that lives in a different state with his wife and 7-year-old twin daughters. Their parents are no longer alive. They both passed away within the last 7 years. The father, from pancreatic cancer, he was the last to go. And the mother of breast cancer. She passed away 5 years before her husband. As part of their father's will, he gave the lake house that he owned to his children. The oldest, Cassandra, became the legal owner of the estate, but all children owned the house equally. The lake house is a 4-bedroom, with each sibling getting their own room. The last room, which is the master bedroom, that once belonged to the parents, is now used as the bedroom for the grandkids. They are free to use that lake house whenever they please. Everything is up to date, remodeled, renovated, with the mortgage fully paid off. It's the second year of the pandemic. Cassandra and Amari have been cooped up in their houses, working from home for over a year. The two just wanted to get away from the city. As Labor Day was quickly approaching, Cassandra called her sister and asked if she and her son could go up to the lake house for Labor Day weekend, because Cassandra was planning on going and taking her son with her. Amari thought it was a great idea. She had missed the lake house and loves her big sister and would really enjoy spending the holiday weekend with her. It'll be good for the boys to do some bonding. "We'll be there," said Amari. "Let's meet at your house, then we can all head there together. Let's leave Friday afternoon. I can be at your house at 4:30, Amari told Cassandra. "Then we'll leave the lake house early Tuesday morning since I'm taking that Tuesday off," said Cassandra. The Friday of Labor Day weekend approaches, and Amari and AJ pull up to Cassandra's house. Corey comes outside and walks up to the car. He tells AJ that he's driving his own car up to the lake house and asks if AJ would want to ride in the car with him. AJ agrees and gets out of the car. "Hey, can you help me carry something out to the car?" Corey asks AJ. "Sure," AJ replied. "Thanks, it's in the basement. Come with me," Corey said as he led AJ to the basement with him. When they get to the basement, Corey goes over into the corner where there is a small cooler that was hidden underneath a box. In that cooler was 2 cases of beer. "I'm taking this with me for the weekend. You see that blue blanket over there on the couch? I'm going to wrap this cooler up in it and put it in the back seat of my car. But when I bring it upstairs, I need you to distract my mom so she doesn't find out, okay?" Corey says to AJ. "I guess, man," AJ replies. Cassandra is loading up her car, while Amari is sitting in her car talking on the phone to a friend. The two were so occupied that they weren't even paying much attention. Corey asked AJ if the coast was clear. AJ told him it was. Then Corey comes up the stairs, through the house, out the door, and to his car to put the cooler in the back seat. Neither Cassandra or Amari saw Corey with the cooler, and AJ didn't even need to distract them. He got lucky this time. By 4:45, they all piled in their cars. Cassandra in hers, she was leading, Amari following right behind, and Corey and AJ at the end of the line. The lake house was about 90 minutes from their home. Before hitting the road, they stopped to get gas, but managed to make it to the lake house by 6:30 p.m. Luckily, it was still daylight outside. They all unload their cars, take everything into the house, and go to their rooms to get settled in. A little after 7 o'clock, Corey comes to AJ's room and asks him to go take a walk with him so they can go check out the park. The two head out while their moms prepare dinner for everyone. Corey and AJ walk down the road and reach the park. They sit on the benches outside the park and Corey lights up a joint. Corey and AJ sit in the park and smoke some weed. They talk for a little bit, and then once it gets dark, the two head back to the lake house. As they are walking back to the lake house, Corey asks AJ if he knew of the Lakeshore Strangler. AJ had never heard of that before and asks Corey who that was. Corey tells him that legend has it that there is a guy that lingers around this area. No one knows where he lives, but he swims in the lake at night, and if he sees people walking in the park, he comes out of the water and sneaks his way toward them. He'll charge toward his victim, tackle them, then strangle them to death. Then he leaves his victim on the ground and flees before anyone can catch him. The Lakeshore Strangler has murdered 11 victims already, and to this day has not been caught. His motive is left unknown. Corey heard this tale from a friend he met up here last summer when he and his mom spent a month at the lake house during the pandemic. AJ thought it was just a tale, but Corey is convinced that the legends are true. Corey even looked into past murders in that area and found evidence that 11 people had been murdered over the past 4 years. All the same way. Strangulation. What's even more bizarre is that the murderer for all those victims is still a mystery. Could the legend be true? The two arrive at the lake house, eat dinner, then everyone heads to bed. The next day, Corey and AJ spent all day swimming at the lake. They bought a few beers with them and some weed, and each time they went. They only came back for lunch and dinner. After dinner, Corey and AJ decided to go back to the park near the lake to smoke some more weed. They sat in the grass near the water. While they are there, they notice something swimming in the water. They assumed it may have been a fish or an alligator, but they didn't think too much of it. A few minutes later, it starts to drizzle and a rainstorm was on its way. Corey and AJ decide that it's time to head back home before it starts pouring. They get home, watch some TV, eat some snacks, then around 2 a.m., the two of them go to bed. Sunday, it rained all day long. No one went outside. The boys didn't go swimming. Everyone just stayed indoors. Cassandra and Amari spent the day in the living room area, talking, drinking wine, watching TV, and cooking at mealtimes. While Corey and AJ spent time in the kids' bedroom, playing video games and watching TVs on YouTube. By Monday, Labor Day, the rain had stopped and it was bright, sunny, and hot. This time, everyone decided to go to the lake and swim. After breakfast, they all went down to the lake for a swim. Cassandra and Amari left after a couple of hours to go back home to start cooking dinner for everyone. Corey and AJ stayed and swam. They came back for lunch, then went back to the lake to swim. While swimming, AJ looked off in the distance and thought he saw a person floating above the water, further along the lake. They were floating on their backside. They looked almost dead. They couldn't really tell where they were because they were too far away to see. "Do you want to head back now?" AJ said to Corey. "I guess we can. I was getting hungry anyway," Corey replied. Corey and AJ get out of the water, get dressed, then head back to the house. It was around mid-afternoon. After dinner, the sun was starting to set, and Corey and AJ decide to go back to the park to smoke some more pot and have a few beers. They arrive at the park, play some music while they drink their beers and smoke their weed. After it got dark, Corey and AJ are high and a little tipsy from drinking. But off in the distance, there was a sound of splash in the water, as if a person jumped in. "Did you hear that?" AJ said to Corey. "Hear what?" Corey replied. "It sounded like someone just jumped in the lake," AJ said. Corey shrugged it off, then opened another beer. After about 15 minutes, Corey is looking off in the distance as he's hitting the joint. He could have sworn he saw someone crawl from out of the water and lay down on the grass area. Corey took it as him just being high and left it alone. A few moments later, as Corey passes the joint to AJ, he looks back in the same direction where he saw someone come out of the water to see if the person was still there. And to his surprise, they were. Only now they were standing up, feet shoulder width apart, arms at their side, just standing there. It was hard to tell if their back was to the boys or if they were facing them. "Hey AJ, turn that music down a little bit," Corey said. AJ turns down the music and says, "What's wrong?" Corey replies, "Don't turn around yet. Wait a second before you do. But there is a guy over there off in the distance towards the bank of the lake. He's on the grass standing up, and I can't tell if he's looking this way or not." AJ then turns around to get a look at the man, and then turns around to Corey and says, "I see him. I can't tell either. It's too dark. I think that maybe the person I heard splash into the water a little while ago. Maybe it was him going for a night swim." "Then why is he over there standing looking like Dennis the Menace?" Corey said as he pointed over to the guy. "Don't point, Corey," AJ says. "My bad," Corey replied. Corey takes a pause and stares at the man for a minute. Then he looks over at AJ and whispers, "AJ, I think that's him." AJ responds, "Who's him?" Then Corey says, "The Lakeshore Strangler." "Corey, that's bull. That's just an old tall tale. It isn't even true. Now, yes, that guy does look creepy, but he's not the Lakeshore Strangler," AJ replies. Corey just looks at AJ, then looks over at the man. Then Corey's eyes start to widen as he stands up straight, looking startled. "Okay, but why is he walking this way towards us?" Corey says, puzzled. AJ glances back real quick and sees the guy walking towards them, but is still very far away from them in the distance. Then he says to Corey, "Should we go?" Corey replied, Yes, let's go now. Then the two of them grab the stuff off the park bench and start walking home. They only walked a few yards until AJ got a funny feeling and decided to turn around to check and see if that man was following them. AJ looks back, and to his astonishment, the man was now running, charging ahead towards them at full speed. Oh shit! Run, Corey, run! Without hesitation, Corey starts running when AJ starts to run. They run out of the park, away from the lake. Now they are on the road. To the left of them is a small forest of trees. Quick, let's go in here, Corey says as he leads the two of them into the woods to go hide. They get a little deep into the forest and hide behind a very large tree. As the two of them are catching their breath, Corey peeks out from behind the tree to see if the man was following them. As Corey walked a few feet past the tree, he was tackled to the ground by the man. The guy had been running full speed toward them, and by the time Corey stepped out into view, the man saw Corey before Corey could see him. Corey did not have enough time to react or brace himself. As the two wrestled on the ground, the man had a good hold of Corey by the headlock. Corey fights with all his might to break free from this man, as this man was strong even though he was a few inches shorter than Corey. AJ stood there, frozen, unable to move, totally frightened by the situation. All AJ could do was stand there completely still with a blank expression on his face. Corey punches the man in the nose, then twice in the eye, and manages to break free from the headlock as the man releases his grip from the pain. Corey was able to gain control of the man and started punching him repeatedly. AJ stands there frozen, still in astonishment of the scene. Corey stands up and starts kicking the man in his stomach. AJ unfreezes when he realizes what's happening, then rushes over to Corey and begins to pull Corey away from the man. Corey backs away, then says, "Come on, let's go." And the two of them book it out of the woods. They exit the woods, reach the road, then run down the road and don't stop until they get to the lake house. As they reach the door, Corey reaches in his pocket, pulls out his keys to unlock the door. He unlocks the door and rushes inside, AJ right behind him. AJ slams the door shut, then locks it, turns around and slides to the floor, sitting with his back against the door, catching his breath. AJ looks over at Corey laying face down on the floor, breathing heavily, trying to catch his breath. Once they catch their breath, they yell for their moms to come into the living room from upstairs. Corey and AJ hadn't moved from their positions when Cassandra and Amari came down the stairs. Cassandra immediately walks over to Corey and says, "What's wrong? Why are you on the floor?" As she kneels next to him to attend to her son, AJ stands up and goes to his mom and hugs her. "What's the matter, sweetie? What happened to you?" as she comforts her son. For about 5 minutes, both boys didn't say a word. They were so shaken by the incident. Finally, AJ mutters to his mom, "Corey got hurt." Cassandra is still over there by Corey, now sitting on the floor as he rests his head on her lap. Cassandra looks down at Corey and asks him how he got hurt. Corey didn't respond. Cassandra looks at AJ and asks AJ what happened to Corey. AJ lets go of his mom, then looks at Cassandra and says, "Corey got attacked." Cassandra and Amari, both in unison, say, What? Cassandra looks down at her son, then up at AJ and asks, by who? AJ explains to the both of them what had just happened. Cassandra and Amari both looked puzzled. AJ could tell that they didn't believe him. Cassandra then looks at Corey and says, Corey, did you get into a fight with one of the boys you hung with last summer? Corey gets annoyed as he tells his mother that didn't happen. Corey then gets up and looks at his mom and tells her, I know I got into a couple of fights last year with the boys from around here, but this time, Mama, I wasn't fighting one of them. I did get attacked. We're not lying, AJ interrupts. Corey did fight the guy off, and we ran straight here. Corey replies, yeah, why do you think we were so tired when we came in? From all that running. Mama, you gotta believe me, Corey says to Cassandra. Cassandra raises her arms up to her son, and Corey helps her off of the floor. Cassandra looks at both the boys and tells them to go on upstairs to their room and get cleaned up. Then Amari tells her to come with her into the kitchen. As Cassandra and Amari are in the kitchen discussing if they believe them or not, Corey goes over to AJ's room and tells him, listen, man, pack your bags. I'm about to pack mine. We're getting up out of here tonight. I'll talk with them when I'm done, but I'm not staying here tonight. I definitely don't want my moms up here too with that man on the loose. I told you he was real. Who was real? AJ replies. Corey looks at AJ and squints his eyes at him and says, the Lakeshore Strangler. I told you. AJ looks confused and said to Corey, you really think that was him? Corey just stared at AJ for a few seconds and then turned and walked away. While walking away, Corey tells AJ to pack his bags. Then he goes into his room and starts packing his own. AJ and Corey finish rather quickly. AJ goes into his mother's room and begins to pack her things. Corey goes downstairs to talk to Cassandra and Amari, who had still been in the kitchen. AJ can overhear Corey convincing them that they should leave. Corey has always been a smooth talker and convinced his mom and aunt that they were going to leave tonight instead of tomorrow. Corey agreed to clean the downstairs area while they packed up their stuff. Cassandra packs up her things while Amari packs up what was left of hers. AJ went downstairs to help Corey clean. They all finished within a half hour and all brought their belongings to the front door. Corey, standing in front of the door, looks back at everyone and tells them, we all leave at the same time. You go right to your car, put your bags in the back seat, get in your car, lock the door, and we all leave together. Mom, you lead, and Mary, you're behind, then me and AJ will be right behind you. We drive for at least 30 minutes before we stop anywhere. Now make sure you have everything you need because we are not coming back once we pull off this lot. Everybody got it? Everyone looks at Corey, then at each other, then they all nod. They were left speechless. They never saw Corey take such leadership and maturity. Cassandra was proud. A few moments later, they all leave the lake house, load up their cars, and get in. As they all start their cars, Corey looks in his rearview mirror and sees a figure running towards the row of cars. This time, carrying a rifle in his hand. Corey yells out a swear, then wails on his horn, telling them to go. AJ turned around and saw what was happening. Then he rolled down the window and screamed, "Go! Hurry up! Go!" As Corey honked his horn some more, Cassandra quickly pulls off. Amari sped behind her, Corey right after. "Keep checking back there, AJ," Corey said. AJ looks back and sees the guy getting to the edge of the road where Corey's car just was. "Corey, there he is. Tell them to go faster," AJ said. Corey honks his horn and puts on his high beams as Cassandra starts to go faster. The next thing they hear is the sound of a rifle going off. "He shot at us," as Corey went faster. Corey honks at Amari to speed up when they hear another gunshot. Corey then honks several times in a row, and both Cassandra and Amari pick up speed. They hear one more gunshot. Then Corey picks up more speed, getting far enough out of range. "We're good, Corey. He's all the way back there," AJ says as he turns back around in his seat. Corey looked angry and afraid, just shaking his head, so distraught by what just happened. The two just sat in silence for what felt like 10 minutes, but only a minute had gone by. AJ then breaks the silence. "So the Lakeshore Strangler has a gun too?" he said in a condescending tone. Corey looks over at AJ, then back at the road and says, "Man, I don't know if it was dude or not, but all I know is I better not see that man again next time I come out here."